Story 1. So, my cousin has this really nice pickup truck she got for her 15th birthday and drives it all the time. She has never had issues with having a car at a young age since she doesn't exactly look like your average 15-year-old. She is 5'10" inches with a mature build and looks way older than me at 19, 5'1" inch with a baby face. She drives her car to school every day and never gives any of her friends a ride. One day, she was leaving school and walked down the street a bit to where she parked her car. She never parks in the student parking lot because of a lot of irresponsible teen drivers and always parks off the school property. When she gets there, she finds this girl sitting on the hood of her car taking selfies. My cousin doesn't like this and proceeded to ask the girl what on earth she was doing. "I'm just taking photos of my car," she said in a "I have a car and you don't" kind of tone. "Really now?" my cousin said with the keys in her hand. "Yeah, really. Now can you leave? You're ruining the mood." She continued to take selfies, and my cousin unlocked her car with the remote, climbed in, and started the car with the girl trying to get off the hood. It's a pretty tall car, so getting off isn't so easy. She moves a couple of inches, and the girl slips off and starts yelling at my cousin. "What's your problem? I could have seriously gotten hurt. You're insane." My cousin just looks at the girl and says in a mocking tone, "Surprised you're not more upset about me being in your car." This girl then got mad and tried to force my cousin's car door open, but it was locked. The moment she gave up, my cousin opened it really quickly, hit her with the door, closed it, and drove off. The next day, she's walking back to her car and she sees that girl again, but this time with two other girls. I guess she had planned on jumping my cousin, but forgot to tell her friends what my cousin actually looks like. She then gets all up in my cousin's face trying to seem threatening, but she is only a couple of inches taller than me. The girl then shoves my cousin, and her response was a good punch to the face, leaving her with a bloody nose and her friends trying to get her up to run away, all the while the girl screaming, "Is that all you got? I will destroy you." My cousin just gets in her truck and goes home. The next day, that girl tried to get my cousin in trouble with the principal, but since this happened off school property, there was nothing they could do. Moral of the story: don't mess with my cousin's truck. Story 2. Whoop whoop, time for a Karen story. This one wasn't as bad as some that I've read on here. No bystanders were involved. Alrighty, here's the cast. Me, friend 1, friend 2, entitled Mom, and her shy kid. He seemed nice. This happened about a year ago, when I was in 8th grade. Backstory: I am type 1 diabetic, which is an autoimmune disease, meaning that my immune system attacked something it wasn't supposed to. In my case, it attacked my pancreas, and now I cannot make insulin to turn sugar into energy, which can cause high or low blood sugars. My friends and I decided to go to a local diner in our town. It was near our school, so we walked there. Diners usually have a lot of carbohydrate-heavy things, so I was prepared with my insulin needle and finger pricker. I decided to order lots of carbs. I got a milkshake and some fries. Fries are about 40 grams and milkshakes are about 70. This called for lots of insulin, so I took my blood sugar. There weren't that many people, but there was a mother and child across the aisle. I pricked my finger. Luckily, she didn't notice that part. Next, I take out my vial of insulin and my needle and start preparing it. She sees this and just watched me for a little bit. Once I'm about to inject into my stomach area, she gets up and stomps her way over. "Excuse me."
Yes?
I didn't inject yet. I didn't want her to see it so closely. "We're in public. Why are you doing drugs here? My son is over there." "Oh, darn it. This hasn't happened before. Usually, people just stare at me." "It's not." She cuts me off. I saw the needle. She's visibly angry. Friend 1. She needs it in order to eat her food. No, she doesn't. At this point, I just wanted to ignore her. We hear our order number, so friend 2, who was too shy to say anything, goes up and gets our food. Me. "Can you go away? Our food is ready, and I need to prepare for it." She noticed my vial of insulin and asked, "What is that?" "You can read the label if you want. It's my insulin." I was trying my best not to explode at her. "Let me read it." I hold up the vial to let her read. I see that she calms down. She must know what insulin is, even though I told her that it was insulin. Guess you can't trust middle schoolers. She walked away and probably went to demand a refund from the poor cashier. The kid was just sitting at his table, looking a little embarrassed. I finish with my diabetes stuff and eat my delicious food. I have a pump and continuous glucose monitor now, so I'll probably get fewer weird looks, except when they beep. While I was typing this, my dad came over to me and told me that they're making a nasal glucagon spray. Way better than the long needle. Story 3. I was not directly involved in this interaction, but it did occur in the same street I belong to, and the tree could be seen from my house as it was less than 100 feet away. Some brief backstory is necessary to understand the direness of Karen's situation. Karen, along with her daughter, owns a house on a street with 7 other people, including me. This street is somewhat private. Although it isn't gated, it shares many resources and services that set it apart from the rest of the community. Basically, it was originally empty land in the middle of an already existing neighborhood, bought privately by a group who built houses and sold them. For these reasons, this street has a homeowners association representative, and they share things like lawn maintenance and street repair costs. For example, the street splits the cost for repairing things like street lights, and the people that mow the lawns do the entire street at a time. Karen and her daughter are rarely seen on this small street, and they instead rent their house out to newcomers every few months or so. I have only seen them in person a few times since I moved here. On their most recent return a few days ago, they decided to have the tree out in their front yard trimmed down before the next tenant arrives. Unfortunately, this tree belongs to the street, and she has no jurisdiction tampering with it, and she knows it. She made a failed attempt to call the Homeowners Association board, and when they did not reply right away, she took the initiative to cut the tree to her desires. This morning, a group of workers came in a truck with loud power tools to cut several branches off this large tree. The Indian guy came out first to complain, and later came out the old lady. They have both been living here for a long time and understand the rules clearly. The conversation was distant from my house, especially since I chose not to go outside and join the argument. But it went along the lines of the following. Indian guy: "Hey, you can't cut that tree." Karen: "Well, it's on my property." "Actually, it's not. Tell them to stop cutting it. You need to contact the Homeowners Association first." I did, and they didn't respond, so it's not a big deal if I just trim it, okay? Old lady: "Any change affects the value of the entire street and every house on it. You have to stop it." Oh my gosh, it's just a tree. Just give me a break, okay? For those that don't understand, the entire street sort of has a common theme to it, where every house has a similar design, and each having a tree is part of said design. Stripping this mature tree down to a couple of branches completely ruins the look of the street. The Indian guy walks up to the workers who are basically already finished. "Guys, please stop for now." Karen steps in front of him. "Hey, back off." He puts his hand on her shoulder to push her away. "Karen, stop being aggressive." It goes on for about 30 minutes. The entire time, Karen is being extremely rude, interrupting people, and basically whining incessantly. The Indian guy, the old lady, and the other neighbors watching knew they couldn't do anything without contacting the Homeowners Association first. They certainly didn't want to touch her, and they couldn't do anything with the workers because they were hired by Karen. This entire time, her daughter didn't say anything and stood at the doorway of her house. The workers continued with the tree, and in no time, it was finished. About an hour passes when the Indian guy and the old lady return with news from the Homeowners Association. It was true that Karen couldn't touch the tree, and everyone knew that. But what Karen didn't know was that the consequences were extremely straightforward and relentless. When they began to explain to Karen her remaining options, she had an annoying irk of victory on her face, but it didn't take long for it to be completely wiped away. The Homeowners Association policies dictate that she has to completely replace the tree, which means that she needs to hire people to come dig the tree out, pay for a new tree, pay for it to be planted, and pay for the lawn that will be inevitably torn up as the tree is being replaced. If she does not comply, her house will be put on lien and be no longer considered an extension of our private street. For those that aren't fluent in real estate terms like me, this means that Karen cannot sell, rent, or refinance her property until said conditions are met. Even if she complies right away, her new tenant will be delayed at least a week or more while the tree is being dug up. This is just such a sweet and fitting end to her entitled attitude. In total, she will be set back thousands of dollars for essentially nothing except lacking consideration of those around her. I'm not entirely clear on the costs, but I expect it to be at least $10,000. Moral of the story: don't mess around with trees. They have countless lawsuits and homeowners association strings attached to them. And don't be a jerk to your neighbors. Edit. I reread my post and decided that I didn't do as good a job as I wanted to in explaining why Karen deserves her justice. I forgot to mention that she did flip everyone off and threatened to call a lawyer. She acted really childish overall and kept repeating the same phrase of something like, "You can't touch me. I did nothing wrong," over and over while interrupting people. Her daughter wasn't too much better, but you can't really blame her for trying to defend her mother a little bit. She probably just didn't understand what her mother really did. Her daughter was like, "Stop shouting, don't get aggressive," etc. Edit 2. After talking with some of my neighbors, it turns out Karen was a jerk long before I moved here. A long time ago, there was a rule that you couldn't park your car on your driveway, which most people thought was stupid. I think it's stupid too. The rule was set when the street was built because people wanted it to look nice or something. Apparently, Karen took this rule way too seriously and kept on giving tickets to the old lady's husband. I mean, come on. What a way to get to know your next door neighbor. Before long, the entire street voted the law out 7-1. Guess who wanted to keep it? Karen also locked the back gate of the street closed and didn't give the key to anyone because she thought she was entitled to control who gets to use the community gate. Too bad I wasn't there at the argument because I could have transcribed more of what they said. Karen kept on trying to change the subject and put the blame on the old lady for letting her bamboo fall into her backyard. Dude, the old lady was sick that day, so what a jerk for arguing with a sick old lady. I'd also like to mention the trees. Yes, trees. I realized after looking closer at her yard. She cut 2 cypress trees and a deciduous tree that grows red seeds in hard pods that I forgot the name of. The cypress trees she cut were towering and magnificent. She trimmed them down halfway, and they will never regrow because both are at least 20 years old. That's all I can remember to add. Thanks for listening. Story 4. A few years ago, a 15 female at the time went on holiday with my mom, dad, brother, aunt, uncle, and their friends, a couple. My aunt and uncle live far away from us, so the holiday was specially planned to spend time with them and to show their friends the brilliant parts of our country. One evening, the family decided we would walk down to this fabulous deck with a lovely view of nature and the sunset for some evening drinks. This deck also served as the waiting area for the reception of the hotel we were staying in, and as a result, it had about 5 areas of seating with enough space for about 6 people each. My brother and I decided we would walk down a little before, while the adults got ready. When we got there, we picked a spot with a good view, put our stuff down, and ordered some cool drinks. 10 minutes later, my uncle arrived with his wife and her friend, who immediately went to check out the curio shop. He sat down and ordered a beer. It arrived, but he then got up to look for his wife and her friend to ask what they'd like to drink. Shortly after this, a tour guide arrived with at least 20 couples on his tour. They were obviously then all waiting to be booked in. It's worth noting that his guests were all elderly, but that they were in no way unable to stand for long periods of time. With my brother and I and the other people who were previously in the reception area, there weren't enough seats for them all. Now, I have a very visible physical disability that renders me unable to walk without a walking frame. If I even attempt to stand without it, I'll fall on my face. The tour guide walks over to me and my brother and says while leaning on my walker, "Excuse me, but you two need to move now. My guests need to sit down here." My brother and I were a bit taken aback, and we didn't really think it was fair considering that it's not only the reception but also a place for social gatherings, and that seats work on a first-come, first-served basis. However, because our parents always taught us to give up our seats to the elderly, I slowly started getting up. At this point, my uncle returned and said, "Excuse me, but what are you doing? We were here first." The guy replied with, "You need to respect your elders. My guests need those seats. They referring to us can move. This is my business." My uncle calmly came back with, "Sorry, but I don't know if you've realized that she's disabled and can't stand for long periods of time. Who are you to tell her to move? We won't be moving." The guy called my uncle a jerk and told him to show some respect, but he went away huffing. Not even 10 seconds later, people on his tour came up to my uncle and said, "Well done for standing your ground. We're so sorry for his behavior. It's embarrassing." The guy came back later to try to give my uncle an inadequate apology, which my uncle accepted, but said, "Considering that your guests told me themselves that your behavior is embarrassing, I think you need to rethink your business skills." He walked away red and avoided us the whole evening. We had a lovely dinner,